Hi, I'm Joe Feeks, editor of Poultry Health Today, and with me is Jean-Pierre Vaillancourt. He is a veterinarian from the University of Montreal. Great to have you here.
Likewise.
Now, you are known as somewhat of a biosecurity expert, I guess. How did you get focused on that?
You know, when you're an applied scientist, you kind of follow the money. And basically, when I started my career, they had a lot of issues with infectious diseases. And so, you know, biosecurity seemed to be something important. And when we started looking into it, we realized, well, we talk about it, but we don't do much.
Really. And the industry still has a lot of issues with infectious diseases, and
yeah.
They've certainly upped their game with biosecurity, especially since the avian influenza outbreak a few years ago, but we still have a long way to go, don't we?
We do, and one reason is you have decision makers who may have a perspective of what's happening on the farm, and then you have the reality of the farm. And the reality of the farm is turnover, new employees all the time, utilities, companies who have new people coming in, don't know what they're doing. All these things that's dynamic. You know, it's an industry on wheels. And to really manage that and maintain control over how things are moving and preventing, basically doing it right. So essentially, when it comes to biosecurity, every measure of biosecurity, doesn't matter what it is, have to do with reducing the source of infection. So it could be a pile of manure. You want to reduce it, eliminate it. When you wash and disinfect, you're trying to reduce the amount of contamination. Okay, so that's the one big thing, is you want to reduce the potential source of contamination. Could be a flock. You're trying to reduce that. And then the second one is you're trying to maintain a distance between this source of contamination and healthy birds, in our case, healthy animals. If you achieve all the measures of biosecurity that we know about and that we do today in the field, they all have to do with these two things. That's it.
And it's interesting because when we were corresponding the other day, we had some strong opinions about foot baths.
Well, what the science says, okay, because we're doing studies on that, is that unless you have a fresh solution, unless your boots have no visible organic material on it, so you brush the boot, you brushed it well, now you need to soak. Okay, to be halfway practical, it should be about 1.5 minutes to lose at least 2 logs of contamination. Nobody does that. So technically speaking, are the products good? Of course. We spend fractions of seconds sometimes in these things. And after a couple of people have gone through it, very often, they will contaminate your boot. They will increase the contamination of your boot, okay? Now, some people have an emotional attachment to foot baths because they've been using it for 30 years. They've committed to it. They felt that they were doing something very useful, and so they were very sincere. And to these people, I say, well, if you really want to maintain something, then try a dry bleach. So maintain your foot bath, but no liquid, dry bleach in it. Just the contact with the dry bleach will coat your boot and will already have a bit of an impact on reducing contamination. And you don't have to change those for usually a couple of weeks. Now, the best thing to do is you have your separation, your line of separation, because that's one of the 2 principles. And you keep boots from outside, and you change and put boots for inside. And these boots have to be easy to put on. If you have boots that are difficult to put on, human nature, we're not going to do it. But if it's easy to put that on, we will.
What are some other holes that you see when you go around and you visit poultry farms? We've discussed foot baths, but what are some other areas for improvement, if you will?
Communication, okay? I mean, within the industry, for some conditions, we need to learn to communicate, share information. In particular, in areas where you have high farm density. You have a proximity, a more organic material all in the same place or in the same region. That includes more insects that may go from farm to farm, more rodents that may go from farm to farm, more people, more equipment. All of this density means that you cannot behave as if you had a farm away from everybody else. Epidemiologically speaking, for a bug, sometimes two farms are so close to one another, they're one site. They're one site. If you realize that, then you can say, okay, maybe we should talk about some issues. When are you moving your birds? Which direction are you going? How old are going to be your birds when I'm going to move mine? How's the situation on my farm? Am I concerned that I'm shipping birds that are not doing well? It's the last day, I'm shipping them as soon as possible because I can see something's happening. Well, if something is happening, maybe they are infectious. And then I have to be careful how I'm going to move them. So all of that level of communication within the industry for some conditions, ILT, mycoplasma, avian influenza, sure, but it's a reportable disease. Once something like that is reported, the feds are going to come in and tell you what to do very often. It's a different thing than an endemic disease or a disease like bronchitis. A new strain of bronchitis is going around. If we could talk about it, if we could exchange information, maybe we would be in a position to react better, in a given region. So communication is certainly a big thing.
Well, are there things that you could do to move these birds in a more secure way?
Yeah, but at the same time, what you're talking about is coordinating, and now we have tools to do that. Yeah. Okay, and we have ways of scheduling and rerouting. We have programs now, softwares that will tell you the best way to avoid different areas so that you create this separation. So it's not as difficult as it used to be. That's the one thing. Second, in a given region, you may get 3 and even 4 integrated companies with clients. And even if it's the same company, that doesn't mean that the health status of each site is the same. Okay. So regarding transportation, one thing that's important is to make sure that the employees, the people involved in transportation, are coming in clean. And when they go to the slaughter plant, and then they decontaminate on the way out, or they have the opportunity to decontaminate, because often it's not well done. If you look at people in swine, they've discovered the impact of that. Yeah. With some
truck
of these
washes and
truck washes, drying, the power of dryness on destroying pathogen. Now I'm not saying that in poultry we're going to get to that point, but now they have developed in swine ways of doing it economically. And we need to look at these things sometimes to say, well, in this particular region, we have a history of having this problem, recurrent problem. Why don't we sit together? We don't need to love one another, to work together. We need to respect one another, and then let's look at what we could put in place. Some going quite far. Some companies will do zone raising even. They have the size of hatchery and slaughter plants so that within a week they can come up with 8, 9, 10 sites being populated and depopulated within a week. That's another way of doing it as well. So the solution depends a lot on each site. Okay, it's a case by case. Nobody's got a silver bullet when it comes to biosecurity and controlling diseases. There's no such thing as a silver bullet or an easy way of doing it. If it would be that easy, we would already have done it. Okay, so we really need to look at each situation and say, okay, what might work best here? Bad biosecurity will allow a virus or bacteria to come in on a site. The spreading is bad communication. because I've been on a situation where we had ILT and a truck was delivering feed. It's not a high-risk situation, a truck that brings feed, but that truck went to five other farms or something like that before they were told, you know, you had been on a contaminated site. And that's upsetting. How come that happens? You know, if you can stop that thing. And when it comes to poultry, in chickens, you can wait 24 hours before you ship birds. In turkeys, you can wait a couple of days, up to 3 days. And you better wait, make sure you understand what you've got going on so that you can react accordingly. But that requires coordination within the integrated company. That requires, and then between companies in some cases, and acknowledging that it's not because the plan says we have this in place that it's actually going on. It's actually being done, okay? So how do we fix that? Well, we need to get the people involved. The people who are actually have to do these things, they need to get involved in designing, reviewing biosecurity programs for each site. You cannot just go and, you know, I talk about, you know, two or two principles, but that's very broad. Yeah. But there's a lot of different things you can do to achieve either reducing the contaminant or keeping a distance between healthy and the contaminant. There's many ways you can do that. And we need to get the people who have to do it to contribute, because if they come up with the solution, they're more likely to follow their own ideas.
Well, let's talk about coming up with solutions, and I'll make this my last question, but what sort of new technologies are coming on stream that poultry producers should be looking at?
Well, when it comes to biosecurity, mainly at the barn entrance, we're actually looking at what's been done in the human field in hospitals. Like right now, we're doing tests with, because to increase compliance for anything, a quick feedback is very useful, okay? If somebody does something wrong and they learn about it the next day, it's not as powerful in terms of information than if they're being told as they're just doing it. So for example, we set up a farm where you basically have boots that have a little gizmo in it that if they cross the line, they're going to be recorded. And that boot is not supposed to cross the line. So if it does, there's an alarm that will go off. And we even can send in real time a text message to the person on his or her phone so that they realize they just did something wrong, because that boot was not supposed to cross the line. And we've seen that we can increase compliance quite a bit because people don't like to hear that buzzing sound.
I would guess not.
We do it also with hand washing, because hand washing is paramount. It's critical. And at the convention, at the meeting here at AAAP, they talk about wearing gloves, for example. People have to wash their hands or wear gloves. Well, research has shown that if you, in a hospital, wear gloves, 30% of the time or about, you're going to contaminate yourself as you remove the gloves. So you still need to wash your hands. So washing hands is critical. It has to be done right in the middle before you go from outside to inside. That's the first thing, okay? Because if you're going to have contaminated hands and you put on the boots from the farm, you just contaminated something at the level of the birds. So that's not very good. So your hands have to be washed, and then the next thing you touch would be stuff that would be on the side of the birds. So now we have designed these alcohol gel type dispensers, and if you cross that line and you did not activate the thing, you're going to get a message. You're going to get a buzzing sound because you did not activate it to decontaminate your hands. And we know actually that it's quite good. Just even if you don't have access to water and soap, just using a good 70% alcohol gel will go a long way to reduce the contamination.
And it's great that you get a message, but at that point, the damage is already done, right?
Yeah, but first of all, you just did it. You're still not in contact with the birds. True. So then you can correct the situation. You can go back, 2 feet and actually use so you can do something about it. And it's a reminder. And when it happens, because that's the thing, when you get used to something, then you forget it's there. You can put a poster, a sign saying you need to do this, but after a while it becomes part of the environment.
You don't see it anymore.
Yeah, and I would remove it, and you would say, I knew there was something there. But sometimes it's the other day they removed a house near where I live. I have no recollection how it looked, but there's a big hole now.
Yeah, so you know it's gone.
I just pass by. You don't see it. So you need to have ways of reminding people, and real time is best.
Okay, well, we'll have to leave it there, but great insights and advice on biosecurity. Thank you very much. We've been talking with Jean-Pierre Vaillancourt. He is a veterinarian at the University of Montreal. Thank you again for coming by.
You're welcome.